Hey,
Hi there.
hey
Here
there.
we are. It's our Wednesday time again. We
Uh,
are, let me go back and Dave, you can do the intro for this time. Who are we?
Well, we're Laura and Dave Butler and Work Life Consulting, and we have our favorite co-consultant with us today, Jeffrey Levin, who's doing
All
some
right.
wonderful work with trying to help organizations understand how to deal with their people problems, of which there are many.
Many.
Many, many. And
So
it's
we,
not even that the people are the problem, it's that the process and the conversation hasn't happened.
well, and it hasn't happened, or if it does happen, it's based on old technologies and methodologies. The thoughts about how we deal with the people today are still based on ways that we did it 20, 30 years ago, and it just doesn't work. So it
Yeah,
led me to today's topic for me is how distorted is your mirror, whether it's organizationally or individually. If we can't really see ourselves very clearly, we can't really operate very well. So being able to see yourself more clearly, I think, is something that we can bring to the party, and then Jeff can make sure it works inside organizations.
absolutely. So, as Dave said, our favorite guest, Jeff Levin, you have a few things going on, and president of Levin HR Consulting, and has a webinar tomorrow. And levinhrconsulting.com is where you can find Jeff. Is there, Jeff, is there a sign up on your website for the webinar?
Yeah, when you go to the Levin HR Consulting website, there's top banner list webinar. Click on that. You can register.
And it's all free, huh?
Yes.
Giving it away.
Giving it away.
Yeah, that's my life.
Yeah. Well, I think as we start the conversation here, one of my favorite quotes really always comes to mind for me because we don't see the world the way it is, but rather as we are. So I think that's where we get to this whole conversation about distortion of
Yeah,
the mirror, is because the mirror can sometimes just look one-sided or it's cloudy and we can't see beyond it. But I think, and to your point, Dave, one of the key areas is self-awareness.
yeah. Being able to really understand and hopefully see ourselves clearly is the foundation of what we call emotional mastery. We have another one of our seminars coming up. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But being able to be the master of our own emotions, we have to hopefully be confident in the fact that what we're feeling and seeing and perceiving is accurate. If it's inaccurate, we're going to be in trouble. So awareness, so accurate self-awareness gives us the power to make real choices for ourselves. If you're inaccurate in the way that you see yourself and you make choices based on that, you're not going to be very happy, I don't think.
No,
We
because
see,
it is distorted view.
yeah. And I'm sure, Jeff, you see a lot of this in organizations when you work with them. People have made choices for particular jobs, for promotions, trying to figure out what it is that's wrong, for why they feel so unhappy.
Yeah. And to add on to that, I sometimes think people don't see the way they see the world is the way they want it to be as well.
Hmm.
They try to fit things into their vision, their way they see it, which is, as you
Hmm.
said, can be distorted. So you're setting yourself up for a situation where it may not fit. It could be a bad decision.
I go to work every day. It's like looking at myself in a funhouse mirror.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure where what I'm picking up makes any sense. But for leaders inside of organizations, I mean, think about how that distortion magnifies itself under the decisions they make for the organization and the way that people start responding to them. I mean, it can really get out of hand.
So I guess the question that we discussed earlier is what can you do to true up the mirror? And you had a couple of ideas and insights on that.
Yeah, I think one of the most important ways we cover in emotional mastery in our course is to be able to accurately name the emotions that you're having.
Hmm.
To be able to even understand what it is that's going on. So many people get angry and they feel righteous in that. You say, "Why? What are you so angry about?" And they look back at you and say, "I'm not angry." Really? you know, it's bordering on road rage, but they don't see it. They see it as some righteous feeling that they have that they're going to go fix it.
Yeah.
I had somebody on the phone yesterday, one of my clients, talking to me about what's going on with the team, and the conversation all centered around the lack of trust and all of the things that somebody was doing to make upset the apple cart. I just said, well, if that's what's going on, why don't we bring it out and talk about it? Well, what keeps us from being able to true up the mirror?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you see that, Jeff, a lot. It's, you know, why don't managers and leaders have conversations with their people that you know, focus in on what's really happening? And of course, the real issue is the triggers.
Yeah, it triggers. Sometimes I have seen people, it almost becomes, obviously it's emotional, but you can feel it. Somebody gets really angry, their blood pressure rises,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like the mirror gets distorted because
Mm-hmm.
you're not looking at things clearly. You get
Yeah.
over with emotion, and then the triggers is to recognize when that's happening.
Yeah.
And that's not easy because you have to step back and you have to look at what's going on. And the triggers sometimes can be specific to certain people. You know, they trigger you where others may not.
Yeah.
So it's an emotional awareness, of seeing what, you know, how am I interpreting this situation? Why
Yeah.
am I starting to get upset or angry? What's going on?
Well, that was the second thing I was going to say about truing up the mirror, is to recognize and be able to accurately see what's going on for you physically.
Mm-hmm.
Not only to be able to name the emotions that I'm having, but what's it do to me? That my stomach gets upset, or I get nervous, I start shaking, I start yelling. I mean, you know, people have all kinds of responses, but if you can recognize that for what it really is, that's another level of truing up the mirror for accurate self-awareness.
Well, I think too, the other piece that doesn't happen is, and something that you refer to, Jeff, in the course, in the emotional mastery master course, is that you get alongside others and you have the chance to practice and identify what are some of the emotions that may push a trigger for me. And, you know, the point of, you know, the other people who may push those buttons, we don't have to like them. We just know that, okay, that's you know, a bucket I don't need to go into today,
Yeah.
but I'll, you know, figure out a way that I can work with that person. And
Well, I don't have to walk into the meeting and say, go ahead, push my buttons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I can close up a little bit and get myself ready.
Yeah.
I don't have to make myself overly vulnerable to someone who's going to push my buttons and get my triggers going.
Things like before you go into the meeting or have a one-on-one meeting with an employee, you can feel it. I'm a little anxious. I'm not sure what's going on or what's going on. To stop yourself and say, why am I feeling anxious? Oh, because Bill is in there, and Bill always comes up with harebrained, you know, what's triggering it? And to say, okay, when Bill starts, I'm going to just sit there and listen. I hear you, Bill. Good point. But not to get triggered, not to get engaged in that back and forth. It's emotions. It's hard to stop it.
It's really hard. It takes a lot of self-awareness, which is what we're talking about today. And I think one of the things I've learned by experiencing these situations is there's a book that I really like. It's called Questions Are the Answer.
Yeah.
And, you know, with open-ended questions that identify, it can blend in with a feeling and a comment, and it doesn't have the other person feeling like they're being ignored or not listened to, or there it is. Questions are the answer. Hal Gregerson.
Look at all the little tabs on there, huh?
Yeah. Those would be my colored tabs. I recognize them very well.
Laura's been reading this book. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
fingerprints all over it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think what we have tools too. I think that's the other thing that sometimes we forget. And for example, with our knowledge of Berkman, the mindset report covers something called social acuity. And you know what? When you talk about self-awareness, then you also have this piece, which is having realistic expectations of other people's behaviors and attitudes.
Right. This this ties nicely into my third way to true up the mirror, which is to try and catch yourself, recognize the thoughts that you're having, because thoughts give rise to emotions.
Mm-hmm.
If I tell myself, oh, Bill's in this meeting, he's going to be a jerk, well, I'm already setting myself up to get my triggers pushed, because when he does get a little jerky, I go, see, I told you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the thoughts and emotions that we go through in ourselves, the tapes that we have running in our head. Oh, this is going to be a tough meeting. This is going to be tough. Well, guess what? It's going to be tough if that's what you think.
Mm-hmm.
I love that the old quote Henry Ford said, if you think you can, you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, it requires us to be emotionally smart. So I think with that in mind, Jeff, if there's anything that you wanted to add to, since we are going to be opening up the Emotional Mastery Program again in a few weeks, anything that was a takeaway for you? I know the group dynamic was really important, but anything else that you would share?
Yeah, I just found it very helpful that some of the exercises we went through, as Dave indicated, recognizing what emotion you're feeling, and also writing down what the behaviors are to get more in touch with what's going on, what's running through my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to come back a little bit to the group exercises. The people that were in the Emotional Mastery course, the seminar, were wonderful because each one shared with the rest of the group what their triggers were. And it was really helpful to hear how they reacted to the triggers. I found myself nodding my head and yeah, I've been through that. And it's interesting. Somebody else struggles with it. I'm not the only one, and how they deal with it. So, yeah.
Exactly. Well, I think your webinar coming up, which is tomorrow, what leaders need to know. I think that, this is the kind of thing that what we're talking about today, to have leaders be aware that what they can do is give people tools. They can create that strategic plan rather than the tactical, let's get it done, let's move everything forward, which is still important, but a strategic plan for people.
Yeah. It's one of the themes of the webinar is, and I even have it in there, it's a mantra, which is we have a plan for the business, but we don't have a plan for the people. It's incredible how much energy, no, it's not incredible, it's the right thing to do. We need to have measures for the business. We need to have plans. We've got EBITDA, we've got profit and loss. What do we have? Where are we going, and how are we going to get there? The missing piece is the people. They're correspondingly, or even half the amount of energy and time. If we could spend that with figuring out, how do we teach our managers? How do we enable them to have a conversation with employees? What's psychological safety? What's a productive conversation? And then to systematize it. Because if it's just in one pocket of the organization, hey, that's great. It's better than nothing. But as it starts to get integrated throughout the organization, right, it's expected that we're going to speak up, we're going to question things, then it's the norm. And you start to feel the energy flow. So we talk about during the webinar how to build and how to build the right structure, how to put the right environment in place so that you then can start to have those productive conversations, and it can take off from there. People start to grow and develop and ask questions. So it's a wonderful premise and platform for companies to be able to grow. It's the people side of the house, the people plan. So tomorrow at 2:00, go to my website and register. I think you'll get a lot out of it.
Yeah, I think this is the kind of conversation that we need to have. And also to remind people, because let me get this out of here. I think, well, for now, we'll just leave it. This is the Berkman tool, just looking at interest. So if we're thinking about managers, leaders working with people, to be able to look at each of these categories and help people to see, this is some area that I might want to move into down the road.
Yep.
So that helps with the whole idea of, if people are in the wrong position, it's going to set off triggers every day.
Yeah.
Right.
triggers of motivation and being bored and not
Yeah.
having a sense of purpose and all
Yeah.
those things that come together when you start getting close to your passion and your interest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think too, we've been looking recently a lot at something called collaborative leadership. And when you've got collaborative leadership on board, you've got, here's the end game. This is what we want to accomplish. Who's interested in what piece? Now, if they're red, they're going to start looking at, the tactical side. Let's get hands on and get her done. The green are going to start wrapping their heads around the story. The blue are going to have the vision and the future. And the yellow, we're going to align the metrics. And what do we need to measure and grab a hold of for data? So when we look at that, we can, put people in the right role.
Yeah,
So,
the old world, I'd just say, well, I'm paying them to do what I want them to do, so why don't they just shut up and get busy?
Yeah.
You can't really get away with that anymore with, the year of the Great Resignation behind us now.
Yeah.
With 4.5 million people, leaving their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Why should I have to do this anymore if I don't like it?
Right. Well, this has been a fabulous conversation. And again, we are Laura and Dave Butler with Jeff Levin. If you're listening to this on recording, thank you for joining. And always let us know, what are some of the triggers that, you need to address and you need to pay attention to for yourself. And as we close, we always love to play music of our dear friend Elliot Lewis, elliotlewis.com, and enjoy a little respite from.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Dave and Laura. Bye, everybody.